Yeah. So, I mean, I'm kind of taking this after all this drama in the community. I'm kind of taking the stance if it's backed by a company, I'm out. That's kind of where I'm at. It's just OpenSUSE. I'm sure the SUSE Foundation is nice, and I haven't heard any drama from them. And but with the track record of Linux companies, with Ubuntu and Canonical, with Fedora and Red Hat, I'm just like, man, I want just a stable, reliable system I'm not having to worry about. Arch has always been Arch to me. The Arch team's always been great for what they are. Same with Debian. It's stable. It's exactly as it always has been. In the past, 5 years, I can't say anything bad about either one. They don't change, and that is cool. I never have to worry about some company doing something stupid. So community run distro is kind of where I want to live. And the enterprise distros exist for like your SUSEs of the world, your Canonical, your Red Hats. They exist because people might want to use Linux in business and they want a support plan for someone they call. Having said that, from a business standpoint, for me, I don't need those support plans, and they're not required by any kind of contract that any of my clients have. So why the hell would I use them? There isn't a reason. Just use a community distro. So before I might have recommended an enterprise list distribution, but with all the shenanigans those guys have, it's just not worth the drama. I like just, hey, call a spade a spade. It just doesn't change. It's very predictable, and predictable is what you want in business. And I always know Debian stable is Debian stable. I never have to worry about it doing some weird thing. Like Ubuntu sometimes will just say, hey, when you go to install Firefox or you install this, it's now a snap. I don't like that change. Change is bad in that regard. And if it doesn't give me anything special with that change, why has it been done? So for me, community distros from here on out, man, across the board, business and personal. It's just my stance on the whole thing. I probably should do a video on it, but I don't know. There's a whole bunch of haters out there, and it's just yeah. Sometimes I'm like, I hate social media. It's like, why attract that negativity? So my more, I don't mind talking to you guys and just saying it because we're in chat and we can go back and forth. But yeah, I don't think I'll do a YouTube video on it. I think Jay over at Learn Linux TV said it best. He's like, you just can't trust these Linux companies, and that's why you should just go with a community distro. And after watching his take on it, I was like, you know what? I kind of agree with that. And I don't really have much to add from his take. I was like, that's cool. And in most clients, over the time, I'll probably keep some of those enterprise Linux that are going EOL. Like if you're unfamiliar, like CentOS 7's going EOL, I think this year or next year. I think it's next year. And with it going end of life, whenever that happens on a client site, I'll probably just shift them to something. You could even shift if you want to stay away from Red Hat. You could shift it to ASUSE. They can take RPM packages if there's specific packages that business uses. For the most part, nothing I do requires any specific RPM packages, so I could easily shift them to like a Debian server that would just be stable. So why wouldn't you just do that? So community distros, that's it. Everybody else is just a second class citizen in my eyes. They're the devil. Yeah. to do that. It's kind of funny on the second channel on Titus Tech Talk, Red Hat's the devil. I made that video when they killed CentOS 8, and I had some friends that lost like a month of work because they transitioned. Um, yeah, that whole thing happened. But Debian's always been good. Like, there's never been a time I'm like, damn it, Debian, you've lost my trust. Yeah, I can't believe you did this. Now, most times it was me just being frustrated with Debian on an install or something. I might have talked a little crap because that's what I do. But there's never been a time where I'm like, I'm never using Debian again. That's a bad thing that Debian did. That's never come out of my mouth. I've never said that. So yeah, I mean, honestly, and the same for Arch. There's never a time where I left Arch and I was like, I just can't believe the Arch devs did this. That's never happened. Arch has always been the same. Debian's always been the same. They are what they are, and they're both community run. there's no big company overseeing them, and they're both like have massive adoption, so they're not going to go anywhere. So why wouldn't you just use, those depending on your needs? You're either one or the other, in my opinion. So to me, this whole drama, it just simplified things for new Linux users. Are you a Debian user or are you an Arch user? I feel like that's the only options now, which is probably a good thing, Yeah. And I do understand, like, some data centers do require support contracts, so there's still a place for these enterprise Linux distros. So I'm not saying they're going to die off or anything like that. It's just from my perspective and what I do, I just don't see a point in them anymore, other than to meet some kind of requirement of support at like a data center or a business where they would need someone to call. But typically, if I'm the endpoint or the end-to-end contact, I wouldn't even bother anymore. It's just why I don't want to stay up at night and worry about a system. The whole point of doing enterprise Linux was set it and forget it. That's the whole point of them. And if you can't do that, instead of a 10-year release cycle like you get with like CentOS, or CentOS of old, I should say, not the new one. Why wouldn't you just use Debian? It's 5 years of stable support. So usually if they release a stable distro, they won't go end of life for 5 years, which is pretty solid. And honestly, after 5 years, you're probably going to be replacing some of that hardware anyways. Do you think the recent RHEL news is going to affect Fedora in any way? So Fedora is upstream from RHEL, so it's not Red Hat that's going to affect Fedora in any way. But there's going to be people probably like myself that will no longer promote or use Fedora at all, because why would I contribute with bug fixes and other stuff if Red Hat's just going to be like, thanks for the contribution, but now we're going to just take it and that's now ours. And we're not going to share it. It's kind of a shitty thing to do. So for Red Hat to have its cake and eat it too, so to speak, I think that's kind of messed up. So for me, Fedora, sadly, used to be a good distribution, something I'd actually recommend, but no longer. Because of this drama, it's not something that I would ever recommend to someone anymore. And it will affect it because the user base, there's going to be a lot of people that have dedicated a lot of time and resources into putting these bug fixes out. But why would we give our time for free to a company that's just going to steal it and then keep it for themselves and say, well, we put all this hard work, we organized all these bug fixes and stuff. F you, man. You're just taking everything from the open source community and then being like, well, we got to make money. We're a company. We got to employ people. That's not cool. That's like not cool. That's why everyone's pissed off, because it's like, if it was all Red Hat and they created everything, let's take Microsoft for an example. They created everything. They can close source whatever the hell they want. They made it all. So Microsoft, as much as I like to crap on Windows, they have every right to do what they do, because they don't like, hey, can we get some outside stuff? They'll beta test on their users, of course, but that's the user's fault. But for the most part, everything's developed with in-house Microsoft stuff. Kernel, support, everything. Red Hat is relying on its user base to do the bug fixes, to basically test the upstream using Fedora, to do all that. And then they take all that and they put it down to CentOS Stream. And they're like, hey, go ahead and test it now. Once we get it all kind of exactly how we want it, we're going to do a final commit into our RHEL repository, and then we're going to gate that behind a subscription. And, we got to make money. We got to make money. We're an open source company that's got to make money. So shouldn't they take some of that money and pay the people that submitted the bug fixes that have contributed to the project that don't get paid then? Don't we have to make money? Like, that's where the whole back and forth just makes zero sense to me. Like, you can't be open source and take other people's commits and just not compensate them for it, and then just try and take all the money for yourself. It's just not in the spirit of things. And them saying, well, downstream distros are just a bunch of freeloaders. I mean, I was just like, well, no, you're the freeloader. You know, that's my opinion on it. Yeah. So screw Fedora. I'd rather use Windows. That's my thoughts on it. And I'm pretty sure a lot of other people in the open source community that have done a lot of contributions think the same way. But I'm not going to say that, on a YouTube video and come out. I covered it right when it launched. Like literally this happened 7 days ago. So last week I stayed up as soon as I heard about it. I talked to some buddies of mine and I was like, crap. All right, well, let me just make a video about it. And then it kind of all fell apart from there. It's just been a week of drama, and some people are just now covering it or just getting around to it. So I'm still hearing about it, but after having some time to cool down, I was just like, yeah, it's not worth it. Just walk away, move to Debian or Arch, a community distro, like I said at the start of the stream. Yeah, Jeff Geerling made an amazing video about it. I like Jeff's video a lot better than mine. He did he summed up a lot of people's thoughts because Jeff's done a lot of contributions, especially in the Ansible side of things. He's written several books about Ansible and has many projects and contributions. So Jeff's an amazing dude, and I think he did a great job, and it summed up the whole thing. Like I said, I don't really have anything to add that someone hasn't already said about it.